Hi, Molly. Welcome to What's Your Next Podcast.
Hi, thanks for having me.
So happy to have you here. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, I'm Molly Harper, and I'm the author of more than 50 paranormal and contemporary romance novels and now murder mystery novels. I'm originally from Kentucky, recently moved to Michigan, and that has sort of led me into this new mystery era. It's like
Yes.
isolation or cold weather, but it's definitely led to some new and interesting venues into the murder mystery genre. And my
Yes.
new book, Cute Little Murder, comes out on April 21st in print, ebook, and audio. And it is about what happens when the teen sleuth grows up and her sidekick is pretty irritated with her and has a little bit of a score to settle.
Yes. I actually absolutely love this. I read your paranormal romances thanks to Audible Plus because you had quite a few of those. And
Hmm.
I stumbled upon you. And then when I saw that you were doing murder mysteries, I was like, I am here for it. I started reading murder mysteries first to cozy mysteries because
Hmm.
I've been reading romance for a long time and I needed something else. And I needed like a side of murder, like whether the husband did it or something did it, that you just give me something else. And so I started with cozy mysteries, and then people were telling me about millennial mysteries or mysteries, murder mysteries that are a little bit set in a bigger city. They're a little bit more grittier, more modern conventions, not just such small town. And so when I saw the wedding one that you did last year, I was like, I'm here for it. And then this one, I was like, oh, this is another one. This is all podcasters are like who had a show and then they actually had a falling out to solve mysteries and then coming back into the true crime space. So I'm very excited. So talk to us about just joining the murder mystery. Like what led you to obviously the move, led you to start writing, but was it like the books you were reading or were something like your different rabbit holes you were going down and you were like, I need a break from romance, paranormal, contemporary into the space.
Well, I've always been a romance reader. I used to
Yeah.
steal my mom's romance novels when I was probably 12 or 13. Way too young to be reading them, but I would
Yeah.
hide them and read them myself. So, lifelong romance reader, but also murder mystery reader. Mary Higgins Clark was a very serious phase in my high school reading career. And so I've always loved murder mysteries. I'm a child of the 80s, so Murder She Wrote factored very heavily into my upbringing. And I just have always really loved this idea that there's one person that sees everything and sees the patterns and can close all those loops in the story that are just kind of unraveling and figure it out. And so I've always wanted to write a murder mystery. I just really never had the right idea that kind of set itself apart from all my witches and vampires and ghosts and shapeshifters and all. But when I heard that proposal planning was a career, and this was like a job that people, if you can plan a birthday party, you can plan a wedding, why not be able to plan a proposal? And I was like, well, that just lends itself. There's some sort of story there. And then I started thinking, like, this girl, Jess, she's a proposal planner, and it leads her into these sort of lofty, high income circles that she's not used to. And what if she got isolated with those people in the middle of nowhere, is working for them, but is not enjoying the experience and actually connects with the other people who are working at this hotel and spa? And what if there's a murder? So it really did sort of roll into its own little story very easily. So much fun. And then I tricked them into letting me write another. And it was kind of playing on the concept of the final girl. I'm not a final girl. I am the funny, moderately attractive friend who's super smart. So I'm going to die first in the horror movie in
Yeah.
a really humiliating fashion. So I just kept thinking about like that type of girl and what if she could survive to the end? What's going to happen to her? So I kind of started playing with the idea of the sidekick. What would she do if she got thrust into the spotlight and had to work on her own? And that kind of gave birth to Lainey, who is she and her friend Harlow used to have it's the iCarly of true crime, basically. They had these
Yeah.
webisodes where they were solving these little crimes in their little small hometown, and it all led to a really big case that sort of unraveled their whole town, and everybody is mad at them. And Harlow sort of skated off into the horizon with a new career and lots of panache, and just she just had a fabulous time. But Lainey was kind of left holding the bag, and there's a lot of resentment on Lainey's part. And now they're being thrown together on this island in the middle of nowhere, where it's this old prohibition era hotel where a starlet disappeared and they're supposed to be solving her cold case for a lot of money. because these tech bros were big fans of the show and basically want to have a live show played in front of them in this isolated location where they're solving this crime in real time in front of them. So it's still the Molly Harper quirkiness and funniness, or excuse me, humor and good dialogue and likable characters. It's just 100% more murder.
Yes, and sometimes you just need a little bit of murder.
Well,
And this, both of them are somewhat locked room mystery era because they both are isolated. The wedding one is set in an isolated spot, wilderness place where there's no cell phones allowed. You're supposed to just isolated to this cabin and to this activities. Well, here you're isolated to this hotel, to this island, and there's actually barely any phone service and there's electricity.
you kind of have to isolate them because
Yeah.
otherwise, like, they have the internet. They can do whatever they want. Like, they can order police officers to the location through Uber Eats or something. But it's just like you have to take away their resources. Otherwise, it's too easy.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I like the isolated location genre. I actually got the idea. Did you see that
Yes.
thing? That was like Agatha Christie's old manor house. There were a bunch of people that were staying there for an event, and they got a tree
Yeah.
fell off the driveway, and they got cut off from civilization, basically, and they were all stuck there. And people were watching this on the news, like just waiting.
Oh my
Do
god,
you,
the Agatha spirit was like, we're just gonna have a little murder
yeah,
mystery happening here. We're gonna
let it
have a
go.
little party and someone's gonna die.
Pick somebody you don't like. It's
Yes. And the book actually also explore friendships. I explore the toxic friendship between Harlow and Lainey, which is an interesting topic because I think when you have high school friends, you expect them to, they're best friends in high school. And then they realize, like, obviously life happens. And Lainey is finding herself putting her in pieces. She's down on her luck and she's doing this for the money.
Mhm.
And Harlow feels like she's too big for this and specific things. And they haven't walked through, and we see why this is a toxic friendship.
Mhm.
Talk to like supporting that relationship because that's actually like a central part of the relationship that we see that for high school friends that maybe you don't want to keep them around in the future.
Well, they've outgrown each other, which
Yeah.
happens to everyone, especially with high school relationships. But with Lainey and Harlow, I'm not sure they were actually ever really friends. I think that they were utilities to each other because
Yeah.
Harlow needed Lainey because Lainey was good at like picking locks and finding information. She can read stuff upside down. Like she's a very useful person, whereas Harlow has a little bit more charisma and she has more people skills. And so they were useful to each other. And so that's not necessarily a friendship. It's a good partnership and it worked for their purposes, but now they're all grown up and the purpose is cash. So they have to kind of apply those same dynamics in a way that they're recognizing how unhealthy it was and how it doesn't necessarily work the same way anymore because they're older, they're different people, they've grown, and they're trying to force their way back into the old chemistry because they're trying to put on a show, but at the same time, like it really chafes at Lainey. And it chafes at Harlow too, because Lainey is not performing in the way that she's expecting her to. And she's stepping out, kind of out in the spotlight more, and she's playing the game that's always worked for them. And so that causes a lot of tension.
I think it made the book richer in many ways because it explored that idea of Lainey actually finding her own voice and finding her own space. Like she's been stuck in a job, she's been stuck in a place where she's like taking care of people or finding fraud and then losing her job because she's actually telling the truth, like a truth teller,
Mhm.
and it's not coming to sense. And then here she is actually been highlighted that she actually can come into her own power and she can come to be a truth teller, do it like do it in a way that benefits her, not Harlow. Which is in some ways Lainey was a people pleaser in that sense of pleasing like the other person. It's like now it's no, actually I need to take care of me.
Mhm.
I need to prioritize my well being and my own findings and see this is how actually can actually move forward with it.
Yeah, and it's not comfortable and it's not easy. And I think she grows a lot by the end of the book. She actually makes some real friends. I think probably it's the first time in her life. She's not an easy person. She's likable, but she's not an easy person to know because she has a lot of defenses up.
Yeah. So listeners, the book is A Cute Little Murder. This is a book. It's available on audio, ebook, and physical copy. I listened to the audio. It's excellent. If you want a bedtime story, it's a great bedtime story.
No, it's not violent.
Yeah.
It's not gory. It's very cozy.
It's very cozy, but not too cozy. A
It
little bit
skirts the
more.
line of cozy.
So, Molly, talk to me about your writing journey because you've been doing this. You have 50 something books. So you've
Yeah.
pivoted multiple times. You write in different genres. Talk to us about that journey.
I've been lucky enough that when a story strikes me, haven't necessarily had to stay in a certain lane because, oh no, that's not your genre. I've been very fortunate that the publishers and Audible that I've worked with, they just kind of let me run if I have an idea. But my first book, Nice Girls Don't Have Fangs, came out in 2009. And I was a newspaper reporter. I really wanted to be a novelist. I was always a storyteller, but there just weren't a lot of novelists from Paducah, Kentucky, which is my hometown. And I really wanted to be a writer. I thought that newspapers would be a great way to make a living as a writer. And so I got a degree in print journalism. I started working for my hometown newspaper. I really loved it. You never knew what you were going to do from one day to the next. Every day was different. And I married my high school sweetheart, who was a police officer in our little hometown. And while that is a charming and hilarious premise for a sitcom, it is not great in terms of a schedule because we were always working crazy hours, usually opposite shifts, and someone needed to be home with our daughter. We had just had a baby. And so one of us had to get a 9 to 5 job. And so I took a gig as a church secretary and started writing vampire romance novels at night, as one does. Super normal career progression. So I was writing this book and it was this librarian who she became a vampire in the most embarrassing way possible. When I was working for the paper, I would write a monthly humor column, and they're just little stories from my life about how clumsy and kind of socially awkward I am, which is totally real. And they were the most popular columns were the ones where I humiliated myself or injured myself in some fashion. So I'm like, okay, I'm going to make her the vampire that becomes the vampire in the most awkward, terrible way possible. She's fired from her job. She gets a gift certificate to Chili's and she drowns her sorrows, walks home, is mistaken for a deer by a drunk hunter and shot. And a vampire comes along and turns her to save her life. And so now she has to live in small town Kentucky with her neighbors all knowing she's a vampire now. Her mom keeps trying to feed her pot pie because she thinks that it'll make her turn human again. It's a whole mess. So I wrote this book in a year. And it took me like 3 months after that to find an agent because that was my full-time job basically, was just sending out query letters, getting rejections, query letters, getting rejections. I got 76 rejections before I got one yes. And I said yes to that agent. And like within weeks, she had sold the book as a 3-book series to Simon and Schuster. And I've just been chugging along ever since. Very lucky to have gotten Amanda Ronconi as my first narrator for my very first book. And we've been together now for almost 20 years
Oh my
and
God.
50 books. And she is the voice in my head. I hear her voice now when I'm writing, which is great. She just has such a wonderful sense of timing and humor. And she's just always understood the assignment for my characters. So I'm just really fortunate that the universe kind of handed me this gift of Amanda Ronconi. And now, I work on Audible exclusive series, which means I write the books as sort of radio plays for Audible,
Mhm.
and they're able to release them for 6 months exclusively. And then I'm able to release the print or the ebooks at least 6 months later. So that's been great. The Mystic Bayou series, the Starfall Point series, and the Moonshadow Cove series have all been Audible exclusives. And I've really enjoyed working in that sort of paranormal lane and writing the murder mysteries. And I've really been sort of free to explore whatever weird idea occurs to me. So I'm just really lucky.
That is really lucky. I think you were like in the right place, right time with paranormal. Like it was a time because we were watching True Blood. I remember reading the Suki Stackhouse, which actually Charlene also writes cozy
Yeah.
mysteries and stuff. It's a pretty common thing to see. There's elements that you can actually do a little bit of
Yeah.
murder.
I sort of rode the Twilight wave because
Yeah,
vampires were huge. And so
yeah.
for Twilight, I don't know if I would have been published. So I just the right thing at the right time with the right people. I'm very
Yes, but I'm so excited for more murder mysteries. Are we getting more?
if I have my way, we will be having more. I'm pitching now.
Okay. So fingers crossed. As someone who's like, I love it, but I love your Audible exclusives. They're fun. They're like a fun little read a place. And again, they're great for audio. Like it's a
Mhm.
great like experience where you just like you find yourself immersed in that experience. Because writing for audio is very different than writing Like for
I mean,
like
not for me, because I've
yeah,
always written so dialogue heavy that I mean, I think that's sort of a leading characteristic
yeah,
of the way I write. It's
yeah,
different with the dialogue tags. That's the
yeah.
main difference.
So, Molly, talk to us about some books. Let's talk about. Do you have any books to recommend our listeners to pick up?
Okay, so I've been getting very much into domestic horror lately because it's horror, but it's a little softer
Yes.
and not as gory. But a friend, Chelsea Conrad, has written The Farmhouse, which is sort of The Shining set in a cornfield. It's very being gaslit by your terrible husband when you're actually seeing like a lot of paranormal, crazy stuff going on, but he's pretending it's not happening. And it's very sort of claustrophobic, despite the fact that it's taking place in this huge, expansive cornfield and the corn, like the house is moving and it's just, there's teeth being found at random. It's terrifying. And Chelsea has a new book coming out soon. So I'm very excited about that.
Oh my gosh, I am excited to try this. As someone who's like scared cat, but I'm trying horror at the same time. I feel like because I have the perimenopause female rage right now, that I'm like, I just need
Yeah.
to see other things and
That may be
channel
where
the
the mysteries are coming from.
yeah.
You see someone dead, even if it's on the
Yeah.
page.
You just need something. And like there's like anger, there's rage. Awesome. Molly, tell us where to find you online.
mollyharper.com, or I'm on Instagram, Blue Sky, and at Molly Harper Off. Oh, and Threads. And then I have a YouTube channel at Molly Harper Author.
Awesome. Thank you, Molly, for being on the show.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks for listening to the What to Read Next. For more book lists, cozy reads, and library tips, visit the whattoreadnextblog.com. Your next great read might be waiting there.